Okay, well, welcome everyone. We are here in another episode of the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth TV show. I'm VLYNN HAWKINS. I am your host, and I'm so excited to be here today to bring our special guest and be in the conversation that we're going to be in today. With that, our guest today is Dr. Candace Holmes. She's a doctor of chiropractic medicine, a certified BrainCore neurofeedback practitioner. And we're going to explore the topic of what is neurofeedback therapy? What does it mean for you? And really what you should know about it, because there's some advantages not to knowing about it, but doing it. So let me tell you just a little bit about Dr. Holmes. She's got her Bachelor of Science in Biology and Pre-Med at Xavier University, her chiropractic degree from Life University, and she got her chiropractic experience over 16 years practicing in different states, including Georgia. And she's taking care of patients as young as hours old to seasoned, active, and in their 90s. And I'm liking that because I'm on the upside. I got some time, but it's nice to know what your options are. And there's also an interesting note about her, and that is that this comes naturally. And we're going to find out a little bit about why that is so. But she's board certified in chiropractic and physiological therapeutics. And she's got extensive experience caring for patients. And I love this. Let's be specific. Neurofeedback therapy for people who've been involved in auto accidents, pregnancies, those who are weekend warriors who want to keep being weekend warriors or have gotten injured, and athletes of all ages, educators, members of the service community, including nurses, dental hygienists, hairstylists, military personnel, waitresses and waiters, police officers, firefighters, emergency anyone who is in an active work environment or lifestyle who finds that, not just being in alignment physically and mentally and spiritually, but yes, strong physically. And her neurofeedback therapy came into play several years ago. But it's important to note too that, when we talk about living powerful lives, we talk about sharing information with you that's going to keep you in your best, in your healthiest, in your optimal state of being. And neurofeedback therapy has over 40 years of peer-reviewed, university-based research demonstrating not only its efficacy, but there are testimonies and the institutions that are more than reputable who are sharing this information, like the Mayo Clinic and Harvard and Stanford, actually show how beneficial it is for children and adults who are suffering from numerous ailments, a lot of those that are foodborne ailments. And, we sometimes don't think about how foodborne ailments actually mess up our brains. So we're going to be in this huge conversation, bringing you some great information about neurofeedback therapy. And Dr. Candace, I want to say welcome to the show. You lost your background, but your green screen's beautiful.
It's beautiful. I'm going to try to get it back soon, but we'll see. We'll just go with it.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so I went through a great deal of stuff. You are a woman of such great means and experience that you bring to us today. Tell us a little bit about your journey. Did you just, as a little girl, decide this is what you wanted to do, or did you kind of walk into this somehow? Tell us what happened.
Well, let's see. I moved back down here after I got a divorce back in 2008, and the recession hit. And I didn't realize that's why it was taking me such a long time to get a position as a chiropractor. So I was a substitute teacher for 4 years. And during that time, my oldest daughter was struggling in school. She didn't have any focus. Her attention was awful. She was socially awkward, and it was just it was a really trying time. And the teachers that I worked with were telling me that she couldn't help it. She was later diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm sorry, and that's when they said that she couldn't help it. And typically in our culture, there is no such thing as ADHD. There's, there needs to be more discipline. And I'm a strict disciplinarian, and that still wasn't working. And so I was in denial for a while. I stopped working as a substitute and went back into my profession, and found out about this therapy that helps children and adults. It's non-invasive, it's drug-free, and the results can last up to 30 years. It was in one of our chiropractic magazines, and I'm like, what is that? Let me see about that. And so that's how I found out about neurofeedback therapy. BrainCore is the therapy that I use, and it's co-founded by one of my former professors from chiropractic school. And he was looking for something for his nephew who has autism. And so I already knew that he did his research. And so I said, you know what, let me see about this for my child. And it's fantastic. So I brought it back here just honestly to help my daughter. I wasn't really thinking about anyone else at the time. So that's how I found out about neurofeedback therapy. And I just only wish I knew about it earlier. That's the only thing I regret is I didn't find out about it sooner. Because it changed my whole family's life. And it could have been a lot different earlier. That's the thing. A lot of heartache and frustration could have been avoided.
I know the feeling, and it's hard to live through that and know that on the back end of it all, everything happens the way that it's supposed to. So, it just brings in so much more into the stories that we have lived.
Yeah.
And I so admire you for seeking this out, not just for your daughter, but then discovering that there was really a need for so many others, and identifying the others that you really felt like you needed to bring this to. Because, we hear about children and adults suffering from ADHD, anxiety, autism, Asperger's, depression, insomnia, all types of things, memory loss, brain fog, and we generally don't equate them to the concept of brain health. We automatically go into it's brain illness, it's this, it's that, it's this disease, it's that disease, it's, but brain health, tell us what you actually believe brain health to be.
I think brain health is the ability of the brain to function as it should in different settings. The health of the brain depends on what you eat, what you drink, making sure that you exercise, making sure you're managing stress properly, making sure that you're socializing well, you're sleeping well. All these come into play for great brain health. I find a lot of my patients have past traumas from childhood, physical, mental, that they have not had counseling for or have recovered from. And that all plays a part in how their brains are functioning now, because either those experiences were locked away or they weren't ever acknowledged. And so the person themselves had to continue on with life acting as if nothing happened when something did. And so that plays a huge role in brain health. So it's important to notice that it's just not just one thing. It's a plethora of different levels to it, just to make sure that they all are addressed so that your brain functions well.
Awesome. It's like in hypnosis, one of the things, especially working with new clients, I often talk about is let's go back to not necessarily to bring up the pain, but to recognize the incident, the event, and to actually understand that it had a purpose for happening, that any injury has a purpose for happening, a cause, a root. And when you understand that, it's easy to understand and see the ways out. And sometimes, even with eating the right diet and living, a healthier lifestyle. There's sometimes that you also need a little bit of additional support. That's why we go to chiropractors, right? Because we're doing our thing. We know we're trying to be healthy, but,
Yes.
We step wrong and it's like, oops,
Right.
I'm out of alignment, and you can't necessarily get it back by yourself. You need help.
Even I get adjusted. Absolutely. I wish I could adjust myself, but it's impossible. What I'm doing is not helping at all. So yes, we all need help. And just to
Yes.
acknowledge that, we can do all the quote unquote right things, and still some things may not fall into where they're supposed to be or work as they should.
And that brings us to, especially today, a lot of people have opened their minds to, like I was saying, the concept of hypnosis. You were saying in our culture, hypnosis used to be like black magic.
Exactly.
There was that thing that you didn't want to touch,
No, not at all.
and
Not at all.
and today it's not only scientifically proven, there's testimonial proof, there's decades of proof in the benefits of hypnosis. Tell us about neurofeedback therapy.
So neurofeedback works to retrain and rewire the brain. The brain processes information in different ways. So the part of your brain that you use to write your name is different from the part that you use for, say, like physics and calculus. So when a brain is well regulated, it goes into whichever processing that it needs to accurately and on time and on point. When there is a dysfunction in some areas of the brain, then it doesn't go into those areas that quickly. So just like the case with people with ADHD, the best way that I can explain it is as if half of their brain is on dial up and the other half is on high speed. And if you remember how dial up was, good Lord, don't get on the phone. I'm getting on the internet, waiting. And then high speed came, it's like, ooh, I click it, I'm on, I'm done. So with an ADHD brain, that one part is still in that dial up mode. And as you know, when you combine two things together, when one's higher and one's lower, it always reverses the lower. The lower can't go higher, the higher can only go lower. So that's the slower processing speed. And so when people start having those dysfunctions in their brains and they start having those symptoms of, say, from ADHD or depression, anxiety, the PTSD, insomnia, depression, all those are just dysfunctional of processing of the brain. And so the actual therapy involves you're just looking at something on, say, a streaming device. I'm going to name all the ones that you have, but you plug into that device, you're connected to, it's all a computer-based therapy. You connect to the computer, and when you're watching what you're watching and your brain is in the pattern that we're trying to correct, you see what you're watching nice and brightly and you hear it well. When your brain starts going into that dysfunctional pattern, then the screen starts to fade and you don't hear it as well. And so that's a signal to the brain, hey, get back to where you're supposed to be because you're not where you need to be right now. And what I love about it is that it's easy and it's subtle. I had one patient, I mentioned this before, but he was in his 60s and he was coming to the office and he finished his third training session. And he said, okay, doc, when are we going to start training? I said, that was your third session. He said, I thought you said the screen's going to fade. I said, it went completely black 3 times. You didn't see that? He said, no. Because to him, he's just watching a show. And so the next time he came in, I had to set up a tripod and record his session with his own phone so that he could see it. And even after that, he didn't see it until I showed him. He was like, oh, okay. So that's what I love about it. It's easy. My daughter loved it. I had one child, well, a lot of children bug their parents. Are we going to therapy today? Are we going to therapy today? Are we going to? Because it's 30 minutes of uninterrupted screen time that actually is positive and works for you. So they love it.
That is awesome. And tell us a little bit about what people actually experience afterwards.
Sure. Generally, no one has any side effects. The worst side effect someone has had, to my knowledge, is just having a slight headache. A lot of people get sleepy and they take a nap, which I think is a fantastic thing because lots of times, since your brain is being rewired, you may need to rest. Sleep, like most of us don't sleep well, or if we do sleep, it's not good quality sleep. 7 hours is a recommendation now of good quality sleep, and that's not getting up and going to the restroom and come. It's concurrently. So I had one patient who suffered from insomnia. She was only sleeping 3 hours a night before starting with me. Then she started working with me, and then she went to sleeping 5 hours. and then it was 7 hours, and then at 9 hours, she's like, Doc, she said, I'm like a completely different person. I said, yes, because you're sleeping. I said, even computers need to shut down. My brother works at AT&T and T, and he works with the system. He said, you'd be surprised how many systems have been working for 350, 380 days. Just, I'm like, wow, so think about, your body is just going and going and going. It needs to shut down because that's where all the magic happens. That's when everything repairs and replaces and replenishes. Any read that you can think of, that's what happens when you sleep. So that's just like a paramount. And she ended up sleeping up to 11 hours a night, and it was just like, oh my gosh. I said, yes. I said, it's fantastic. She was herself. I mean, the person that I met was a version of her, was not with the poor quality of sleep. But now after she had the therapy, she was just like bouncing off the walls. It was great. It was great. She loved it. She could do all the things that she did not have the energy to do before. So that was always great to see.
Oh, great. And how important is a healthy diet to brain health? Especially, you mentioned sleep and the importance of sleep. How important is a healthy diet to brain health?
Well, the old adage of you are what you eat is just so true. I mean, you put garbage in, garbage will come out. There are a lot of foods out there that are processed and aren't the greatest for your body. We have genetically modified or GMO foods. I mean, the soil that we use now doesn't have as many nutrients as it did back in the day when our parents and our grandparents were growing up. So lots of foods are losing their quality. And so that affects the brain because you're feeding it, but it's like you're feeding something that's at, 20% as opposed to 100%. You're getting in, you're thinking you're getting nutrients, but you're really not. So that makes a big difference. Like with my daughter, they were like, oh, does she eat a lot of sweets? Does she eat? I said, well, yeah, she eats sweets, but her favorite food was salmon. It's like, what, she got diagnosed at 8. What 8-year-old loves salmon? My daughter. So we eat pretty well. We do the best that we can to have fish at least once a week. Twice a week is always is the recommendation. Drinking the alkaline water, the majority of the foods and that we eat and liquids that we consume are acidic, and our bodies don't do well with acid. So we try to neutralize that with alkaline water, because disease does not live in an alkaline environment. And so that's your dark green leafy vegetables, that's your whole grains, the fruits and the vegetables. I mean, I know we're in Atlanta, and I know Coke is like Coca-Cola is like the biggest thing ever, apparently. Goodness Lord, I just stay away from the sodas, stay away from anything that's going to deplete your body of the nutrients that it needs. And that's up there. I'm from Detroit. I call it pop. Y'all call it sodas down here. So whichever way you say it,
and we
get
call
rid
it
of it.
soda pop in Maryland.
Soda pop. Yeah, see, there you go. So you combine the two. Yeah, just don't even do it. I mean, I've not had. I've stopped drinking Coca-Cola years and years ago, and I would drink Sprite, because it's clear, it's a little better. And I got to the point where I couldn't even drink Sprite. I mean, I would cheat sometimes and go, have a little sip, and then I don't know if you remember Martin, they would go like this, that's what I would do. I said it was so carbonated, it was just so harsh on my system. I'm like, my gosh, I can't even do it. And then I would have to follow up with water anyway because it was too sugary. I just couldn't take it.
The sugar got me.
Oh, my cousin-in-law took my daughters out one time to eat, and or many times, but this particular time, she said, how you always think that your children aren't listening to you? I said, oh, they listen. She said, I offered them some pop or some Coke, excuse me. And she said, they were like, no, mommy said you can't have that. And I was like, really? She said, yes, I tried. The waitress tried, and no, they ordered, broccoli, and they ordered salad, and they ordered soup. And the waitress like, you should, want any French fries? They're like, no, we'd like the broccoli, please. So it's all in how you train a child, right? Train a child. So you have to make great choices when they're young. You have to make great choices too, because they do what you do. They don't do what you say. They do what you do. So eating salmon, eating the fish, the salads, the green leafy vegetables. I mean, I prepare spinach. I like to saute it in olive oil with garlic. And I usually get the organic spinach and, the big 1 pound of it, right? goes down to nothing. But if I don't prepare all of it so that there's seconds, my daughters get upset with me. Mommy, there's no more spinach. I'm like, like no. I'm like, okay. So they get upset. They're like, wait a minute, there's only one helping us spinach. I'm like, okay, there's worse things in the world than having children who love vegetables.
You're right. You are so right. And I love that. What do you typically have as, maybe like one of your favorite meals?
My favorite meal, it has to be the salmon. Salmon salad. I just make a spinach. I usually have maybe 50-50 with the spring mix. So I have the spinach and the arugula and all the dark green leafy vegetables. And then I prepare the salmon in the oven. Salt, pepper, and olive oil, and stick it in there to broil. And then when it comes out, put that on top of the spinach with the mushrooms and the artichoke hearts and the cheese. I still put a little cheese on there. That's and
we'll forgive you for that.
Yeah, hey, a little cheese, little Parmesan cheese. It's good cheese. And that's my favorite meal. Then we like the avocado ranch isn't so great either, but avocado ranch dressing is one of my favorites. I'm like, ooh, we put avocado on anything. I'm like, I'm there. And people kill me about avocado, like, oh, how do you like avocado? I said, it really doesn't have a good taste. It doesn't have a taste to me. It's not like it takes away from a meal. It's a good fat. It's good for you. You should eat avocado. It's good fat. I remember seeing a comic strip and it had avocado running on a treadmill. And someone said, no, but you're good fat. You're good fat. It was the funniest thing. Yes, that's one of my favorites, though.
Awesome. And what do you do? I know that you, as a chiropractor, get a lot of physical exercise just in the work that you do, but do you do anything along with that to, really focus on your physical health?
Yes. So I was doing boot camp. I did that for the past 2 years, 3 days a week. Boot camp. Also was doing house calls for chiropractic. So I would have to take all my equipment up a few flights of stairs because not all homes or subdivisions or apartment complexes had elevators. So, putting my book bag on, carrying my table up the stairs was challenging. So I did that, but I had an epiphany a couple of weekends ago. I'm already go. And I said, I need to do something to balance that. So I've switched over and I'm doing yoga now 3 days a week because it forces me to
bring a little zen in.
Take a breath and breathe, and just and I still get my physical, because yoga is no joke. I remember suggesting that to my patients years ago, and the male patients would look at me and go, yoga? I'm like, yes, yoga. I remember the first class I took it with a friend of mine, and at the end you just calm down and you just lay there, and she was knocked out. She's snoring. I was like, Christy, she was like, she was snoring. But that night I went home like, oh yeah, I did yoga, okay, whatever. Woke up the next day, swung my legs over the bed. I was like, oh, my legs were burning in places I didn't even know they could burn. I was like, wow, I did get a workout yesterday, So that's what I do typically now is yoga.
It's funny, like a lot of the scientific evidence of things that are really what work for us are coming to light, and some that are decades old are being revalidated. I think that too is the case with yoga. I think, 30 years ago when I was a fitness instructor, and, at the end of every class, I would make sure nobody gets to leave because you want to do what's next. And it was always the yoga moves and, the breathing, and people would actually want to come back and stay because they knew that at the end they would have this piece of what the body really needs in completing some of the workouts that we were doing.
Yeah.
And you talk about weekend warriors. I don't think I was ever a weekend warrior, but I did experience an injury. So let's talk about injury for a while, because, an injury to the brain is something that we can say, yes, that's specific to the brain. But an injury to another part of the body, that especially if you are into, say, a certain sport, and that injury then becomes a traumatic experience. Tell us a little bit about the neurology that comes into play when an injury occurs, and we don't really think that it's an injury of the head, of the brain, but how it actually connects.
Everything is related to the brain. The brain controls every part of your body. Let's say you cut your finger. The brain is what tells the body to get the white blood cells, so that they're the platelets to cover, to close the wound, to heal the wound. I mean, everything starts in the brain. So let's say my ankle. I twisted my ankle walking. Walking. I didn't even have a good story. I was just walking with my neighbor. The pavement was uneven. I twisted my ankle. I'm like, great. I still walked the next 5 miles on it. That's probably one of the best things to do. But when you injure an area, inflammation occurs. Inflammation is the body's response to the injury. And again, the brain sends signals down to send that those neurons and those dendrites to get the fluid to that area to stabilize it. The thing about the brain is that it's able to, so when you injure the pain, okay, so the brain gives you pain signal, and that's how you know to stop doing what you're doing. So the brain is what does that. Typically, when the brain is used to being in that state, that painful state, that's when the chronic pain comes, and it keeps on firing those the signals from the dendrites from the neurons. And that's the not so great part of that, because the signal keeps going there, even though the injury has stopped. So the thing that happens with the therapy that I have, it closes that loop using the neurofeedback, so that that chronic pain signal is eliminated eventually. It doesn't happen overnight, but it takes a little bit of time. And so that's another area that we use, is the chronic pain with the neurofeedback, also with the traumatic brain injuries and the concussion. Because anytime your brain is affected like that, your brain is not meant to be shaken. You know, it's like they talk about shaken baby syndrome. It can have effects that, you know, that deleterious and, you know, can affect the rest of your life. Your brain isn't fully formed till you're 25. So any injury that happens prior to 25 is especially a concern. And that's why I'm so thankful now that they're having concussion protocols, and they're actually taking baseline. Like my daughter's plays softball, and another plays basketball. And there is a baseline there. So in case something does happen, they can go back and say, okay, this is how her brain was before. This is how it is now. You know, are there any changes? You know, what can we do? My dad played football in college. He played both sides back then. There was no concussion protocol. That was, you have the smelling sauce, 2 fingers. How many fingers do you see? 2, 3, 4. Okay, get back out there. And my dad said, you know, I don't know how many times my bell was rung, you know, and he was in the service. So a lot of traumatic events. So just the one thing I love about the brain is that it can learn a new way of being. It's called, you know, neuroplasticity. It can learn how to become alive again, or how to function better than it was before. My dad is one of my patients. He's 83, and his brain is still changing, even with the neurofeedback therapy. So it doesn't matter how old you are. It just matters that you get the help that you need.
So neurofeedback therapy, how does it compare to sound therapy?
Sound therapy is a little bit different. With neurofeedback, neurofeedback therapy is directly related to the brain. Like I have a leads that connect directly to the scalp. Sound therapy is more of an overall therapy. They both work well. I'm not very well versed on sound therapy, so I had a person who was telling me about it, how there's some markers that come from sound, and even like the sound of your voice and the tone of your voice can signal what has gone on in your past. And I was like, wow, that's very interesting. So that's something I am looking to explore, and perhaps to even add to the practice. But mine, one thing I love about it is it has objective findings. So you begin the program, and then there are checkpoints throughout the program that I put my patients on, and we can see how well the brain has changed and protocols change as the brain changes. Just like if you're taking medications, let's say you're taking medications for anxiety, you've been taking those for usually, most of my patients are like 12 to 15 years. I just don't, I'm gonna take a breath on that. The side effects typically to medications that you take are worse than what you're taking them for. And so after the patients start with me, I give them all the side effects of the medications that they're on. And I tell them, hey, pay attention to these. When you start having these side effects worse than you normally do, that's a good thing. That means that your brain chemistry is changing, and now you don't need that high dosage of whatever that you're on. So then I can say, hey, go back to the doctor who put you on that and ask if you can get your dosage decreased. So the goal is to decrease, 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 and then eventually no longer need it. And that's what I love about neurofeedback, because the effects can last up to 30 years. I mean, even 5 years of not being on a medication that you've been on for 15 is better than an additional 5 years of being on the same thing. Because typically the only thing that changes is your age and your hormones. So um, that's what
And
that is.
so you mentioned hormones, and there is hormone therapy.
Yeah.
How does neurofeedback therapy play into and with hormone therapy? Because
So
it's a normal state for women to go through those hormonal changes.
yeah, buddy. Unfortunately, I always
We
said the
know
joy to
that.
being a woman, boy. I tell you what, well, from 12 on up, we just get it, don't we? Just get it. So with the paperwork that I give, there's a form. There's a form that you fill out, and it scans to see how your glands are working, your adrenal glands, your pituitary, your thyroid. And then if your levels are elevated according to the scan that I have, I typically send you out to an endocrinologist or nutritionist. There's a woman that I just recently started working with, who's a naturopath, and so she can get to the cause of why these hormones aren't working as they should, because they all play a part. I have a patient who had brain surgery, literally had a tumor removed from her brain. Her thyroid, I hate to say, is a mess. She's partially blind in one eye. It's a combination of things. So her case is a more complicated case as compared to someone who didn't have all those challenges with their hormones. But yes, they absolutely play a role. And it's like I tell people, you can use my therapy and go on my programs, but if you're not taking care of those other aspects of it, then you're not really going to experience the results and the transformations that you would had you not had you address that earlier.
Very interesting. Um, Dr. Candace, what's the number one myth that you hear that people say about the brain and the brain health and healing the brain? I know a lot of people up until recently didn't think that it was possible for your brain to heal.
Yes. That the thing I think that I hear the myth that I hear the most is that I'll always be this way. It's nothing I can do. I'll always be that way. My mom was this way. My dad was this way. I'm just destined. That's just it. Now, genetics do play a part in how your brain works. Typically, some of those conditions may be passed down genetically. However, you're not your parents. You know, you are doing better, hopefully, with your diet, with your exercise, with making sure that you have mental exercises like learning how to a complicated dance move, or even playing chess, playing something that you've never done before. So you can change how your brain is working. You don't have to think that if my dad had it, then I'm going to get it, and that's it, and the world's over. That's the one thing that I want to dispel that myth. I had a patient whose mom had frontal temporal dementia, which means she got dementia at like 50. And my patient was 27. She said, Dr. Holmes, I'm married, I have 2 kids. I don't want my children to go through with me what me and my brother are going through with our mom. They couldn't put her in. They tried to put her in an adult daycare center. And those people are old. I mean, she's 50. I mean, older, 70, 80 years old. She said, Dr. Holmes, I don't trust that she knows how to use a microwave oven. And I'm like, whoa, she said, there's a 50% chance that I can get this, and there's 50% chance that I won't, but I'd rather stay on top of this. And so she started my program just to make sure that her brain didn't go to where her mom's brain was going. Because even at 27, she said, I'm noticing that I am forgetting numbers. I am transposing numbers. My brain is getting foggy. I just don't remember things like I should. And I'm 27, so, this should not be happening, but it concerned her enough, knowing her mom's history, to make sure that she did something about it. And I think it's great for people to be proactive as opposed to reactive. And lots of times we're reactive. We woulda, coulda, shoulda. I know I should have. I wish that. I mean, I was a gymnast back in the day. I did rhythmic gymnastics, and I could do the Chinese splits. So your legs are out like this. And my dad was like, after I stopped, keep on stretching, keep on. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. I didn't. and I can't anymore, so it is definitely a kind of move it or use or lose it kind of situation. Use it, use it, use it. Just keep moving, keep learning, be a lifelong learner. Don't just think, oh, high school's over, college is over, I don't have to do anything. Grab a book. I mean, even if you see a new word, just write it down, find out the definition. This is something that we had to do in high school when I was growing up. Use that 5 times, throughout your day in a sentence. And now you have something that you've learned that's new. You are activating your brain. You are decreasing the chances that you'll develop dementia and Alzheimer's. Just little things that you can do every day that most people don't even think about. I mean, most people don't even have books physically to read in front, just even turning the pages. That's start on that. I was like, oh, so just find something that you enjoyed reading. I read a lot of business books, and I am doing better at balancing that with something that it's pleasure reading, because you don't want to always have one thing too. So it's about balance. It's about balance.
I love that. And you're so, so right. As we're wrapping up, is there some wisdom that you believe is important to share with our audience beyond all of the great wisdom that you've already shared?
Keep moving. I think that's the best advice I can ever give anyone, is just keep moving. My dad gave me that advice when I was growing up. We were on our block, and our neighbor was walking across the street, and he was walking, and he was bent over, and he was using a cane. And I said, "Hi, Mr. Jones." And she's like, "Hi, Candace." And he walked on, and my dad said, "You know how old he is?" And I gave some crazy number. I don't know. I may have said he was 90. I don't know. And he said, "We're the same age." My eyes got big. He said, "Keep moving. Keep moving." I mean, my dad he'll be 83 this July, and he's just as spry, I would say, as a 60-year-old. Keep moving. It's important. When you stop moving, you essentially are dying. So keep moving. That would be my best advice. Just keep moving.
Well, that is some awesome advice, and I so appreciate it. It was such a pleasure getting to know you and having our audience to take a glimpse into what neurofeedback therapy is, and hearing the buzzwords neuroplasticity and just all of the things that bring this important therapy backed by science, thousands upon thousands of testimonials as to how it works, because it didn't just come into play yesterday.
No, most people think it did, though. They're not familiar with it.
Well, and that is so like the concept of using food as medicine. We tend to not think about the fact that, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, before the big pharma decided it wanted to be as big as it is, and there was a pill for everything, there was a food, there was a root, there was an herb, there was a something natural that we could use that addressed everything. And I'm not saying that, Western medicine doesn't have a place, because there are some amazing therapies and technologies that they can bring into what is going to help us. But I think that it all starts with us. Would you agree that it
Absolutely.
starts with us, and that we have to bring ourselves into it, take responsibility for our own health?
Yes. I say that all the time. Yes. A lot of people think, I'm just going to go to the doctor. The doctor's going to do everything. The doctor's not following you home. The doctor's typically not calling and checking on you to see what you're eating today, what you're drinking today. Did you walk today? Did you get some fresh air today? Did you get your vitamin D today? And not from a pill. Talking about going outside and getting some sunlight. You have to take responsibility for your own health, your own mental health, your own physical health, your own health. It's your body. Take care of it. Take care of it. Plain and simple. I mean, I remember I worked at a doctor's office when I was a chiropractor, and lunchtime occurred, and she would have a Coke, and she'd go like this, and then she'd look at me, and then she'd turn around and walk down the hallway. I'm like, hey, it's your body. I said, you do what you want to do. It's your body. But I'm thinking, hey, is this opposite of what we're telling our patients to do? Walk the walk, talk the talk. I was like, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the number of medical doctors that, it's no secret. It's not something that they get in medical school. Nutrition is not something that, they get to have a strong foundation to bring into their medical awareness and learnings. And so, you go into your doctor and you're asking about, well, what should I eat? Am I or it doesn't even come into play, you have to, you audience, health practitioners out there are ready to help with providing this kind of information. The P3 Academy is ready to help with providing this information. We actually have a free ebook on the top 15 alkaline foods that actually, after I put it together, but after I did all of the research and brought in all of the studies and everything, I mean, it's almost 2 pages of research that I brought into all of this. I was like, you know what? For centuries, people have been talking about looking for the fountain of youth, right?
Right.
We have had it all along in these foods.
Yeah.
And alkaline foods. You talked about alkaline water and the fact that not just with the foods and things that we bring into our bodies that are acidic, but the things that are outside of us. I mean, we hear about 5Gs and the number of things in the energetic field that are bombarding our bodies daily. These are the foods that help to not only strengthen your body and your immune system, but they actually are what are the brain foods.
Absolutely.
And so I want to offer everybody an opportunity to get this ebook and download it, read it, look at these things, and avocado is on the list.
Yes. Love them.
And so, Dr. Candace, how can people get in touch with you?
I have
and you've got a speaking engagement coming up, right?
I do. I have a speaking engagement on March the 10th. It's a virtual engagement with ProWin. And I'll give you the information there. We can put the link to that through your channel. To get in touch with me, you can text the word FOCUS, FOCUS, to 21,000. That's FOCUS to 21,000. You'll get my digital business card. From there, you can schedule a complimentary strategy session with me. We can just talk about, what's going on with you, or if you just want to connect. So FOCUS to 21,000.
And I think through that, you'll also get Dr. Candace's website address.
Yes, everything.
And I highly recommend checking it out. She talks some more about the number of different things that she does in the field of brain health and neurofeedback therapy, and just take her up on it. I mean, we have to understand how it is that our bodies can operate more optimally. And you've got to put yourself in the space where the information's being shared. And I just want to say thank you for joining me today, Dr. Candace.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I also want to just say one thing. I'm sorry. I just want to let people know that you don't have to have a diagnosis in order to come see me. And some people come to see me just to make sure their brain functions well. So if they're taking an MCAT, an LSAT, and a GRE, ACT, SAT, neurofeedback also helps to make sure the brain is functioning optimally. So you don't have to have a condition or something wrong with you to come see me.
And that's not a typical doctor's philosophy. So thank you. Thank you. This has been so great. And to our audience, if you are thinking about being more proactive in your health and well-being, then definitely check out Dr. Candace and check out next week's show, because every week we're going to be bringing you some amazing healthpreneurs like Dr. Candace. We're going to be bringing you some amazing conversations, and we want you to live your powerful life. You can find us on Facebook. And if you happen to be a health, wisdom, or wealth practitioner and you'd like to share your expertise on a show, get in touch with me, reach out, PM me on Facebook Messenger. You can find me. It's easy. You can even go to VLYNN at VLYNN at P3Academy.com. Send me an email and let's connect, because it's important to me. One of my things is, once you know your mission in life, your purpose for being here, it's about taking action and bringing people like Dr. Candace to you is something that is so important to me. And I want to say thank you for being a part of this today. All right, everybody, we've got more exciting things coming up in future episodes and more. So do stay tuned, turn on notifications, subscribe to our YouTube channel and be a part of it all. and do us and yourself a favor and share. We appreciate that too. So thanks, and until next time, be well. Bye for now.